I created this little memorabilia, if you will, of Kyle. He was being silly, but that was his personality because he was silly.
Kyle Betts loved his family, baseball, and dancing.
So he was very happy.
He was my best friend. He was my firstborn son.
Davis Brady was also very close to his family. He too loved baseball and music.
He was very smart.
With all of their similarities, these two men had obvious differences.
They didn't look anything alike, either one of these two young men, and there was a huge age difference.
Davis Brady was 22, 6'1", light-complected with strawberry blonde hair. Kyle Betts was 36, 5'4", dark-complected with dark hair. That makes what you are about to hear next even harder to understand.
This should never, ever happen to any other family.
Their bodies were switched. According to the sheriff's incident report, both Brady and Betts were found together in a Jacksonville, Florida apartment, victims of fatal accidental overdoses.
After you got that horrible phone call, did they ask you or anyone in your family to come ID the body?
No, they should have done that right off the bat.
In their reports, Jacksonville detectives described each victim, but the families say their entries are either incorrect or incomplete.
His complexion wasn't fair and light. He had a tattoo. How can they just be so messed up with all of this?
In login receipts, when the two men were transported to the medical examiner's office, Betts' case number ends in 65, Brady's in 66. The families say the clothing descriptions prove their identities are reversed. One example, Betts, an avid Jaguar fan, always wore this hat. The report states Brady had on the only hat.
They had them switched right away from the very beginning.
24 hours after this report, autopsy exams show those ID numbers, 65 and 66, reversed, this time appearing to correctly match the men to their case numbers. But months later, toxicology reports reverse those original case numbers once again. You can see they are eventually scratched out and appear to be corrected in handwritten notes. However,
it's just JSO, disrespect from the beginning, and the inconsistency between a transition from JSO to medical examiner's office.
the medical examiner's office was supposed to send Brady's body home to Waco. But at the viewing, his father says they made this shocking discovery.
The body that rolled in, the hair color's not right, and the beard color wasn't right. The whole complexion wasn't correct. And I said, that is not my son.
Brady's mom immediately started making frantic calls to Florida, to Betts' mom.
It was a very distraught message. Your son is here, and she's in Texas.
They were about to learn, just days before that call, in Florida, the Betts had requested that their son Kyle be cremated.
And in my mind, immediate panic, because I thought to myself, I know where her son is. If my son is there, her son has already been cremated. I contacted our funeral home right away. I said, please tell me Kyle hasn't been cremated yet. Cremated today. Of all the timing, he'd just been cremated when she had reached out to me.
To make matters even more painful, cremation is against the Brady's religious beliefs.
In the Mormon church, they prepare you for burial by embalming. I'll never be able to bury my son's body. We received ashes, and I'm still not sure that's all that Davis. I have doubts.
At that point, I reached out to the medical examiners.
Betts says the medical examiner's office confirmed the mix-up and then made her an upsetting offer.
Your son has been flown to Texas. Their fix was the easy, least expensive fix possible. Would you like for us to get him cremated? Hell no, you're not cremating my son over there in Texas. How do I absolutely know for sure that's even my son in Texas? This poor mom needs her son's body moved to Texas, and I definitely want my son in Jacksonville.
Today, both families are exploring legal options, blaming the sheriff's department and the ME's office in Florida. Here in Texas, it raises a question you may be asking. How common is this?
How common is this?
Rare.
Jim Bates with the Funeral Consumer Alliance of North Texas says they hear hundreds of complaints a year, typically about the preparation or appearance of a body, not about body switches.
Can you estimate how many times you've heard of it?
I really can't think of a single time.
The I-Team obtained state records which show since 2015 4 similar complaints. Not buried in the plot, 2 bodies in one grave, and an empty grave. In this plot by mistake, placed in the wrong plots.
How common is this?
There's actually no way to know if there's a cremation, if it's closed caskets. It may happen more often, and I suspect it does, than people report.
Attorneys Mark Greenwald and Alex Katzman say nationwide the number of similar headlines and the number of law firms handling these cases proves they are not uncommon.
So we've handled cases where they misidentified the body at the mortuary level, at the funeral home level, mistakenly cremated people who did not wish to be cremated. We have literally had to dig people up from the ground who were not supposed to be buried in that place.
They tell me they have 2 pending cases right now, hauntingly similar to the Betts and Davis families.
This is what I have left of my son.
Along with the heartache, Stephen Brady now carries what he says he can only assume are his son's ashes.
Somebody needs to be held accountable. Accountability of the medical examiner and accountability to the Duval County SO and detective that was on the case.
Did you ever get an apology, any phone call?
No, ma'am.
No one's ever contacted
Nobody has ever contacted me.
Both families say the trail of documents only raises more questions about what went wrong.
I feel like they just totally forgot about the fact that he was a human being, that he was somebody's son, that he was somebody's brother, etc., that he was loved.
The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office sent us a statement saying it could not answer questions. It said the medical examiner's office is responsible for the identification and release of bodies. You would need to reach out to them. The ME's office in Florida declined to do an interview, citing potential litigation. Jim Bates and the attorneys we talked to for this story gave us some very good advice, but I need to warn you, this is hard to talk about. If you lose a loved one, you need to go identify the body or have someone you know do it for you. And if neither of you can do it in person, use Zoom or FaceTime. The body should have a tag. Ask to see the number and match that number to the name, and both of those on all documents should match up. If you're told you can't do that, or there are any other red flags, you can have your family member moved to another funeral home. And don't feel hurried about this entire process. Delays should only cost you about $50 a day, and that's for refrigeration of a body. Death Care Services use interns who need these hours, but these interns should be supervised by funeral directors, and you want to make sure that happens. You can look closely for all of those practices in the fine print on your contracts, which we always say you need to read closely. And if you have a problem, there are 2 places here in Texas to file complaints. And I've explained that process, which can be complicated, all on our website. I'm Ginger Allen, CBS 11 News.